Good afternoon. It is August 21st, 2023. You're listening to a Little Column A, Little Column B, hosted by Will Lebanos and co-hosted by Zach Bishop. How are you doing today, buddy?
What is going on, Will? We are so close. We have fake basketball right now. We have fake football, but in less than 1 week, we will have real basketball. We will have real football. We went through the whole summer. There's just one very important question I have to ask you. A lot of people have been asking me this. Is the reason that you missed the last podcast because you won the last poll, the last draft of the year, and you were just celebrating too much, and you needed to just ride it out. You're on the parade, people were tossing you beers, and you just are like, nope, I need another week of celebrating, and you were just off gallivanting with all your fans. Is that what happened?
That sounds a lot better in the reality of it. So let's just let everyone think I'm living a good life. No, you can probably still hear it in the voice. It was a sick day. I'm still recovering a bit from it, but we're back. I'm super excited for football. Draft dates have been set for fantasy. I'm in way too many leagues. There's one league that still hasn't even set the date. I'm worried about the other three, and this one hasn't even activated the league yet. How people are managing to function, I have no idea. But like you said, we're right around the corner right now. Before we get to all the football, and while I'm super excited for all that, we do have an active sport that is currently in season. That is the FIBA basketball tournament, where Team USA took on Germany last night, which, per usual, I think in the past, it was maybe not the most attractive basketball and maybe not the most attractive roster. But watching this game, the other team had multiple professionals that are also in the league, names that I'm recognizing, and guys that played very well. I thought this was a very high-quality game of basketball. I'm reading highlights, that Anthony Edwards has certainly taken a leap, but I thought Tyrese Halliburton and Austin Reeves were two key factors into the comeback of all this. We were trailing a little bit. I really like the roster, and I really like the way everything was just structured. I think this is a very coachable team, and I think this is one of the rosters that has a chance to actually become a team rather than just be a bunch of guys that are super talented that are grouped together and never really mesh. I don't know. What were you thinking from last night? Like, I'm into this. I don't know if we found quite the perfect lineup, but I think there's a lot of versatile guys on this roster you can kind of plug in and get something out of.
This team is super young. So the FIBA, the World Cup, it starts on this Saturday. We've played, I think it was 4 or 5 games. We played a bunch, and they were all more tune-up games, if you will. So we didn't really I would say we didn't really dodge teams. Like, we tried to play the best teams. Well, when we played Slovenia, Luka wasn't playing, but you can't know that ahead of time. But we played Spain. They're the number 1 team in the world right now. Germany is no slouch. So I think we took it seriously, and I agree with you that I like the team. They're young. I think that we weren't blowing teams out. We were down 16 points in the second half to Germany yesterday, and if we had lost, I would not have been all the way thrilled about it. Although the last time we were in FIBA, we didn't necessarily do the best, and I thought we had maybe bigger names. But what I do like about the guys that we have out there are they're names that we know. They're not going to pass the mom test. You don't have Steph, you don't have LeBron, you don't have the top of the guys, and maybe not even the next level down. Your Bams, Tatum, but the ones right underneath it. In the next few years, these are going to be the guys that are going to be making the jump. So it's going to be really interesting to see them where they're all playing together and they're playing different roles than they're having to play on their team. And if you go through the list, most of these guys are on bad NBA teams. It just, you're looking at it, you got Magic, Nets, Knicks. I mean, Knicks were in the playoffs, but you weren't exactly. I wouldn't put them in a contender category. The only real one you got on there is Bobby Portis, and he's the old man on the team. When I see him out there, it's like, ooh, oh boy. But you know what? He's won a ring. He's out there. He's doing it. So, and I think one of the things that I realized when I was looking at the roster and watching it, because these guys are so young, I haven't had time to develop a dislike for them because they've beat the Celtics. So you're looking at it and they're on all, they've been in the league for a few years and they're not, on dominant teams. You don't have Steph Curry, where, I even like Steph Curry, but it's just like, he beat us, or just some of the other guys. So just kind of, it's a very fresh group. The only guy I don't like is Cam Johnson, and that's just because he went to UNC. So even there, that's a pretty soft, not liking once you get to the NBA.
I do have some critiques. I do have some issues. I think Halliburton and Reeves are qualified enough to be ball handling regularly. I just think that every time that there was a press or any sort of, especially at the end of the game, like, let's just throw Brunson back in. Like, we have a point guard. We have a guy that can do this. And I'm fine with Brunson maybe not always being the center of attention or maybe even closing out everything. I think he's capable of it. But when we have other guys just trying to play point guard and we have an actual point guard on the team, it's like we have the ability to not turn the ball over. And it happened too many times where they threw the ball over, breaking the press into the corner, and it just flies off into, like, the fifth row of the stands. We don't need to be doing all that. And I think they have the roster to kind of address those changes, and I'm sure once these games truly become single elimination that maybe we'll take them a little bit more seriously. I want to give a ton of credit to Germany, though. I thought both Wagners played great. I thought Franz was fantastic, and even looking back at the box score, he didn't even shoot that well, but I just thought he had a really good control on the game. Schroeder, I don't know how many times he was going to attempt that underhand scoop, and we were just going to swat it, but he was sure willing to test it. He wasn't going to stop. It didn't slow him down at all. And I thought Tice played very well as well. So, definitely not a slouch of a team right now. I think constantly we're used to sending the best one-on-one guys. Those are the true superstars of the league. And maybe Team USA isn't loaded with a whole bunch of those, but I think they are loaded with a bunch of guys that if you swing the ball and you have a decent enough shooters, you're going to be pretty happy with whoever ends up with the ball at the end of that shot clock. And I think we saw that a lot in the second half comeback of all this, of guys just being ready to spot up for threes and taking good shots. I didn't think we panicked, and if anything, I thought our defense really locked down at the end, and I thought Germany was a solid test both ways. So I'm excited. I'll keep an eye on all this going forward. I just also, dude, Paulo missing every single free throw is I don't know what happened. It just seemed weird. I didn't like that. That's gonna stay in the back of my head, and it's gonna bother me until he kind of fixes that. And I don't know what he's going to do to fix it now. I just thought those were some critical free throws that he missed in the second half, and I didn't expect it, and I don't think he expected it either, and I don't think anyone's digesting it very well is really the reality. Did you watch the game, right? Did you caught up with that?
I've watched all of the games. I haven't watched them live. The one yesterday snuck up on me, so I didn't watch it until later in the afternoon. But yeah, it's been awesome. Just kind of I've been mixing it in with the preseason football, just where there's not a ton of live stuff that I'm really interested in. So just a chance to fast forward through the commercials and just watch it on the rewind, and you get through it where like it's not like some of the other things where I'll watch these other ones live, which I will warn people, it is not as early in the morning as the Women's World Cup, but these are going to be morning games, so plan accordingly.
So you've watched a couple of these games. Out of the guys on the roster, have you seen a new fond suspicion of friendship where maybe some teammates become actual NBA teammates and they run off somewhere and join forces? Are you getting a vibe from any of that? Because my fear is that Edwards is either recruiting to Minnesota, or if you're Minnesota, he's on his way out of Minnesota. I don't know what the combo of it all is. I think there's a hypothetical if the Phoenix Suns drafts a little bit more sophisticated, that Halliburton and Mikal Bridges actually end up on the same roster, and who knows if Durant ever ends up there after all this, and that might be a fun rewrite in history. So I'm enjoying watching them together, but have you found a duo that you're a little suspicious of?
Dude, I think it's impossible, like contract-wise, because these guys are all so young. I mean, Paulo is just coming off of his rookie year, and he's playing legitimate minutes on this team. So I think a lot of these guys are still on their rookie deals. And then, once you're on your rookie deal, then you're a restricted free agent. I think it's going to be a while before. I mean, maybe they'll set the seeds, but I think this is going to be way more. It's going to be, you're just barely laying the groundwork here, and it'll be the next Olympics, the next World Cup, where then this will actually happen. But I think it's way too early for that start to talk.
You want to know the real scary part? I don't think it's going to be anything quite like that. I think if anything, it's going to be players trying to force their way out and getting traded and wanting to play for the coaches that are on this bench, whether it be Steve Kerr or Spoelstra in Miami. I think that's far more fearful, because it seems like that's something you could kind of force your way to make your way to happen. Very, very similar. I'm going to transition here to James Harden, who just publicly, I'm not even sure what the question was asked. He's in China. He's doing some press for something, and that's all fine. I don't know how the question came up, but when asked, do you have feelings about Daryl Morey, he did not hold back. And
Are you sure? Are you sure it was even a question?
I don't know.
I mean, there was a video. This wasn't
Why?
while he was over there, this was said. There's a video of him saying it, and it sure looks like he's at a children's basketball camp where normally there's not questions. It's just, hey, I'm up here. I'm a player, but I'm the coach for the day, and we're gonna do this, this, and this, and maybe a life lesson. Here's how to shoot a jump shot or something. So it seemed even more out of nowhere because it didn't look like it was in a in a press setting.
Zach, I can't even think of an announcement important enough in my life for me to repeat it twice in the same 10 seconds. To be like, I'd like to repeat. Like he says it in the video. Like he says this, and he's like, I just want to reiterate one more time, and repeats the same thing. Like we didn't catch it the first time. Like nobody was recording. What, he's giving everyone time to just get their cameras out? Like I can't even think of one event in my life that I would have to let people know by saying the same thing in 2 sentences like that. Just concerning.
It made sure that you knew that there was no, this is a joke. Maybe I don't mean this all the way. He said it twice, and it like I said, this is reported, anonymous sources. James Harden campus saying this was James Harden on video saying it. There's no ambiguity here. I'm
not sure how he's going to get out of Philly. Like, does this change anything? Like, I understand he's trying to turn the heat up, but the reality is Philly would openly and willingly trade him if there was a trade destination for him. The problem is he's not under a great contract, and he's not the sexiest player that he once was. There's no market for him. Every other team has already addressed an issue without even trading for him, and I don't know why you would want to bring him in for all of this. I also just think if he truly cares about a championship, go along every single roster in the league and tell me which team, which trade, which combination gives him a better chance to win a championship next year than playing alongside Joel Embiid, the MVP of the league last year, and Maxey, who's a great youthful player, and Nick Nurse, who has just won a championship not too long ago in Toronto. I don't know what he's running away from right now. I understand if there might have been some wrongdoing with Daryl, but I think if he wants to get out of here, he's going to have to finish out this year here, and he's going to have to play really well so that he can be a free agent and head off to wherever he wants to head off to. I don't think anyone will have a problem with that. What I think we're going to have a problem with is what he's done the last 2 times in the last 2 destinations. If he shows up fat and lazy and doesn't give a shit early in the year, I think that's going to be it. Like, I think it just should be over. I don't know why would anybody bet on this guy again if this is how he's going to do business. Like, what are you getting out of it? It just doesn't seem worth it at all. So I don't know what he's supposed to do, and I don't know what he's going to do, but I think he should go back to Philly, and that's not even just saying like Daryl wins. It just says that, like, I think that's the best way for you to get what you want if you're James. Do you see any other scenario?
This situation, it just is so confusing compared to the other 2 situations. When he was in Houston, it was the team had just deteriorated around him. Okay, I can't do it by myself. I want to go somewhere else. You've been in Houston for a long time. All right. Yep, that's what superstars do. Then you're on the Nets, and that situation is just terrible. It's weird with Kyrie. He says weird stuff. KD gets hurt. You're the only one that's healthy. It's just a mess. This situation, you're 5 minutes, 6 minutes away from going to the conference championship. If Tatum doesn't go absolutely supernova when he'd been ice cold the entire game and sure looked like he was going to continue that way. So this is a good team. This team would for sure be in the mix as long as they don't have to play the Celtics because we got their number and I'm not scared of the Sixers. But otherwise, like, they would have like a real chance. So I don't know why he wants out except for non-basketball related things. So before it seemed it was very much basketball related or maybe just a little bit off the court, but much more of, hey, this isn't fun having to do this all by myself. I want to be on a real team, real contender. Let's go. So to just be there for 1 year, just, I don't know. And then he had the option. He just opted into this contract. So if he didn't want to do this, he wanted to be a free agent and go wherever he wanted to, he could have just not opted in. What was that? 3 months ago? I mean, it wasn't that long ago.
Well, he opted in because nobody was going to give him the money. The money disappeared in Houston. There was nobody to offer him anything that he wanted. He had to sign with the contract that he had so he could get the money that he got this year. The weird part about all that is that's essentially him testing the market right there. He's basically like, I couldn't opt out and go get the money that I wanted, so I want to sign 1 more year for the contract, and then I want you to trade me because there's no other way for me to get out of here. like he set himself up for all of this. He didn't have to opt in, and then to be shocked that no one wants to trade for him, and that Philly's like, I can't give you up for nothing, as well as nobody wants you, just because you also just found that out yourself. Like it's backwards to me. I'm sure I have no idea what it's like to truly be an NBA player and operate underneath the stresses and the scrutiny that he has, but at some point, like, enough's enough and a pattern's a pattern. Like, this is just never going to work with this guy. And I think he's reinvented himself a couple times through all the next stops, but at the end of the day, we get to where we're at right now. It doesn't really even matter. Like, he took less money to get to the contract that he has right now. That's one. I think that's a win for him and Philly. He didn't have to do that. I'll give him that. You know, and as well as he really kind of let Maxey take a little bit more of a role last year, and I thought he became a lot more of a playmaker while he was in Brooklyn for that short, brief period. And there, and I give him credit for the game last year when Embiid was hurt in game 1 and 2 against Boston. I thought he was fantastic in those. They won those games, and that's kind of like saying he has his ability, and maybe you shouldn't put your team entirely around it. But in a scenario where Embiid gets hurt, which isn't all that impossible, at least you have a guy that can kind of steal you a game like this. I think he's done everything he should have done, but you can't just end every year upset like this and just saying I'm out. These contracts have to be bonded to some degree. They have to be worth something. There has to be, like, you can't just divorce everybody. It has to mean something. I don't know how they get out of all this. I don't know what the best case scenario for everyone is too. And if I'm Philly, this is just so unnecessary on so many different levels and just so unfair, I think, for Embiid once again to have disgruntled teammate after disgruntled teammate, problem and problem and problem again. I mean, he's just going from Harden to from Ben Simmons to Harden. Just seems like, is he just cursed? Like, who's going to bail him out of all of this? And I don't see it coming anytime soon from anywhere else. So,
can you imagine being a Sixers fan the past 10 to 15 years? Your organization invented blatant tanking. It happened before, but was much more on the hush hush, where this was in your face, multiple years. This is what we're going to do. We are not fielding a real NBA team. To you trade up in the draft to take a point guard that once you draft him, like, can no longer shoot, just forgets how to shoot. You have the whole Ben Simmons saga that is just a mess. Your was the owner or the GM got caught with the burner account by the Ringer? Yeah. Of just embarrassing. You know, wasn't like the worst thing in the world. There's, you know, a lot of other organizations that are having sexual harassment or domestic violence. Like, there's way worse, but that is still just on, like, the list of things of, well, this isn't great. And then you're not even having the ultimate success that you would like to have on the court. Do you put out a competitive team, for the past while now? Yes, but you haven't made the conference finals. You haven't, broken to, hey, we're a Final Four team. You just can't even make that. So I'm glad I'm not a Sixers fan.
The other thing I want to toss in there, and while I don't blame James Harden this directly, but they've already been caught with one tampering scandal of last year from, I think it's from Harden taking less money and them signing, Daniel House and PJ Tucker. There's a whole bunch of fishiness that happened all there, of which they were docked draft picks. I'm not pointing fingers at Harden, but there is, like, all right, this happened with your name kind of attached to it somewhat, and that's not a positive thing. These are all negative things. These are all losses. These are all opportunities that you didn't have to give up, that you did give up because of your association with him. It's not great. It's not great. I wouldn't want to be a fan, and I feel a little bit because I want to see Embiid be a really good basketball player, and I think having good players around him is the best way for him to do that. I'm a little scared of what Embiid with a little Nick Nurse juice is going to be. He's won the Defensive Player of the Year award before, and if he just cranks up those defensive juices again, I don't know what that turns into. That could be a true game changer. That could be to the point where they don't even need James Harden, and maybe that's best for everybody. All right, that's going to wrap up the little basketball talk right now. It is almost NFL season, and as we normally do every year, we're going to do a little predictions of our NFL division winners. We're going to rank them all, kind of just list them out. How about we chit-chat a little bit about some NFL news before we dive right into that? There has been a New England Patriots signing, which, if it was however many years ago, I think this is like groundbreaking news that we signed a name again. But we're bringing Ezekiel Elliott to town. We're getting Zeke. Get your cereal ready. And I kind of like the move. I'm not. I would love to know the information on why it was Zeke and not Dalvin Cook or other fill in blank name here, because it sure felt like there was a lot of people that were potentially on the table. But we pulled the trigger on Zeke, and I'm all right with this. I think he's a capable back. I think if anything, he's certainly understood the backup role of the past years, and I think he has. I think if we had to lean on him again for a starting job, even temporarily, I'd feel okay with that. I don't know if I'd want to do that full time, but I think it's an addition. What are your thoughts with Zeke possibly joining the team? He is going to actually make the team, right? We're not going to cut him in like a week, are we?
I don't think so, but it wouldn't shock me. I don't think he moves the needle a ton. We got Ramondre Stevenson, who was awesome last year. Zeke at the goal line is supposedly better than Ramondre. But I just don't know how much Zeke has got left in the tank. I think it's going to help that he's not going to be expected to be the main guy. And hey, we drafted you. You got the big money. It's just, hey, we brought you in, getting you away from Dallas, like getting you, in the Patriot system. I think that could be helpful. But I think the name is way bigger than what the expectations, at least for me, are going to be.
Any fantasy entrants? Is he getting on the team? Is he on the draft board?
No. Not for me. Just the Patriots offense, just in general, it seems risky to go with the second string guy.
If you wouldn't pick him up as a handcuff, you don't think Stevenson's good enough?
Interesting.
If he's your guy,
I didn't think about it that way.
If he's your guy, are you maybe going?
If that's the case, I could see then you have to take it much more seriously as a handcuff option, but not as I would not be drafting him as a non-handcuff option.
You heard it here first. I'm going to try and pry out as much fantasy advice out of him as I can. All right, we've got a couple weeks ahead. You can get all this info before the draft. He tends to tell you everything after. But here we go. You want to do the NFC West first?
Sure.
All right, I think I'm just going to go hot take after hot take here. I think the best team in the NFC is in this division. And I'm going to let you go first with who you think is going to be the top dog of the NFC West and see if we agree on that. Who you got at number one? Who do you think is going to win the NFC West?
The NFC West is going to be the 49ers.
Ding, 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 ding. Yeah, that's who I got. I think that's the best team in the NFC West and the NFC in general. I just think on paper – I want to love Seattle. I really do. I love Geno. I thought that was a hot pick of me last year. I think they signed they got the new rookie guy, the Jackson Smith and Jigba. I like everything about Seattle, but I just read down the names of this roster of San Francisco who's been managed to win games even with all of the injuries of the past. But there's a possibility that all these guys just mold to be healthy for a season, and then who knows what that ends up being. I think this is the most successful team to not win a championship of the past whatever years. And this could easily be the year that they take off. I mean, you're a big fan of this McCaffrey guy, right? I think he's a highly sought after fantasy player. But I mean, I like Kittle. I think Ayuk, Eli Mitchell. I think sneaky. Deebo Samuel's. I don't even think it matters who the quarterback is, at least for the regular season. I think we look all of that in the sense of
Brock Purdy's back out there. He was in the preseason. He's slinging it around again.
Do you think it matters who the quarterback is? I think if you
yes.
I think they can win this division with any of the quarterbacks they have. I just don't think they can win a Super Bowl with any of the quarterbacks they have. I think that's where it gets a little bit more selective. But I wouldn't hold off on any of these guys fantasy-wise based on the quarterback. Like if it's not Purdy, are you losing value in McCaffrey? Or I feel like I'm kind of fantasy-wise taking him regardless.
I haven't seen anything out of Trey Lance. I mean, maybe there's something there, but we're getting kind of coming off of an injury and a young guy. It's not like it's a tried and true guy that got an injury. So when he comes back, there's all right, well, there might be a little bit of rust, but he's going to get it back. It's like, there's not necessarily a getting it back. We don't even know if he had it yet or not, or at least Brock, there was, I mean, small sample size, but there was a spark there.
Do you think the Niners are going to kind of run with this, or do you think there will be another team competing with them?
I think they're going to be dominant. I think they're in the driver's seat.
I do too. As much as I wanted to give Seattle a whole bunch of love. I like Seattle. I think they'll be a good team. I think they can make the playoffs again, and I think I'll go next. I have them at 2, so I have the Niners at 1. I have Seattle at 2. Metcalf, Lockett, and the new rookie with Geno in the offense. I just think that's solid. They were a really good defense last year, and I think they'll be a decent team this year going forward. I just think Geno another year should be better. I don't think it'll go worse. Do you think it's going to turn into a pumpkin this year, or are you doubling down a little bit? Because I was in on this last year. You could join the bandwagon. It's okay.
I don't want to join the bandwagon, and I'm trying to figure out how to say it. Where I think that he's going to be worse than last year, but the other two teams are just so bad that he can be worse, but they're still going to be the second best team in the or in the division. So Geno will be worse, but the team will be fine enough where I just think last year he came absolutely out of nowhere. This guy was out of the league. Like, he was on, the Jets so long ago. So that he even played consistently, which is like, this is amazing. So now if there's any sort of expectations, it's just going to be way harder to live up to the hype.
I think he's going to be fine. I don't think there's a whole lot of talented quarterbacks across the league, and he may not be the upper echelon of one, but I think he's better than the average one, and that might be just good enough for them to be, like you said, effective in this division. I think the real question is, if you're making predictions on all this, is whether or not the Rams offense will be closer to Seattle's offense or Arizona's offense. And I think I'm leading away a little bit here that I have Arizona last. I would be shocked if anything positive happened in Arizona, other than maybe a little fantasy sleeper and Michael Wilson getting some noise. Not a big Hollywood Brown guy. I'd look out for Wilson. That's who I'd go after. But I don't think Arizona's going to be good. I don't think Kyler Murray is going to play more than 8 games this year. I don't even know how that's going to happen yet. I just think either they're going to move on from 8 games or he's not going to be healthy for 8 games, and they're not going to win a whole lot of games at all. So really it's going to come down to whether or not
we must be reading the same things, or we both got burned the same amount last year, because I got tricked, and it was at least last year. And I don't know if it was the past 2 year plus, but Kyler Murray, Kyler Murray, and you think about him, he's running all over the place, and he's slung up that pass way in the air during COVID to DeAndre Hopkins for the game winner. Just, like Kyler Murray, cool name. He's a really good quarterback. I'm not getting tricked anymore. I know the guy's name, but he's not good enough. He's not good enough. He's average at best, and I'm just not getting sucked in as he's like at anywhere towards the elite other quarterbacks. So I'm not getting tricked again. I'm done. I'm done this year. I'm walking away. I'll get tricked by something. I'll get tricked by something else, but not by Kyler Murray.
Also, I think losing Hopkins is something, and I think Kupp coming back for the Rams is everything. Like, I think that's a huge piece to them just being functional right now. Everyone's saying like Stafford's back and he's healthy and all that. It's Kupp, right? Kupp's the guy, right? If Kupp is dominant again, if Kupp's going to set records at yards, I think that they have a chance for all this. I still think that this division has a ton of good coaches. I think McVay could reinvent some offense and who knows what and blow everyone's mind. I still think he has that capability. I just think this roster still has a little bit of that Super Bowl hangover where you were forced to pay certain guys and certain guys had to go because you can't afford everyone, and then certain guys got injured, and then you stopped recruiting the free agents that you were because you're not a championship caliber team anymore, and they go to other teams, and you end up being where you're kind of at in the Rams right now. Like, I don't know. Like, what's the best case scenario for the Rams this year? Like, what are you hoping for? Like Cam Akers is really good. Like, what's the good news for the Rams this year when they finish the year? Be like, no, don't worry, we have this. Like, is it just?
I think you're hoping that Matthew Stafford is good or maybe almost a Kirk Cousins situation, where everyone just says over and over again, I don't think this team is this good, but you just you get that lucky horseshoe and you're just pulling out win after win after win. And Matthew Stafford, I think if he just can't kill you. He just can't kill you if he just is not throwing those picks. And maybe there's a little magical run like they did to the Super Bowl.
Would you rather have out of the quarterbacks of the bottom 3 here? I think we probably actually you could throw all in. Which quarterbacks do you want right here? Like, do we have Kyler last? Then we have Stafford 3, Geno 2, fill in blank Niner guy here at 1. Like,
I want Brock at 1. I mean, those weapons, you named off all the weapons, and I'm always concerned. It's just, I know all those names, but McCaffrey could like almost play wide receiver, where Debo, as we've seen, he's a wide receiver that can play running back. So just to have those weapons to be able to be interchangeable, and I'm not saying you're going to only use Christian McCaffrey as a wide receiver, but just they have skill sets that not everyone else has. Where it's almost like in basketball when you have a combo guard where he is able to handle the ball and he's able to shoot. Not everybody has that. So to be able to have those skills is just, I think, just sets you apart and just makes it a little bit easier for the quarterback.
I think what makes that offense really easier is that they may not have high ball catch guys, but they have killer yards after the catch guy. Just get them the ball and get out the way and watch what they can do. Half the guys on that Niners roster, they just get them the ball in a screen and they're gone. There's anything can happen with it. There's not a whole long list of guys, I think, where you just get them in space, and these guys have like 5 of them that can do it. So, Geno over Stafford though, we're comfortable with that? We'll lock that in. That's what I would do.
I want Stafford over Geno.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think if you were to swap the roles and all this, it's not nearly as well. I think Geno does a little bit better. I think what Geno did last year, I don't think Stafford could do.
Yeah. Like I said, I think it's because everyone assumed Geno getting thrown in there as a guy that hadn't played in a while was just going to stink it up and he'd be out of it. So just that he stayed alive, and I just don't see it continuing.
All right. Any fantasy advice from the NFC West you want to share?
I thought for the fantasy advice that it was just generic. I did not realize it was specific to.
It wasn't. I'm just prying. I'm just pulling. I threw out Michael Wilson. That's my late wide receiver sleeper for Arizona Cardinals. They're gonna have to throw it to someone.
Feel like you're just baiting me to talk about Christian McCaffrey, so you can continue your bit. That's what all this is. You're not even gonna ask me about fantasy for other divisions. You just want this one.
No. I'm in my McCaffrey. I get it. I'm fine. I'm fine with it this year. I just think everyone else in the world already knows that that's also a really good pick. Is there anyone of the Niners you wouldn't take?
I don't know if I'd. Despite all that I just said, I don't know if I'd pick Brock to be my fantasy QB.
No, that's fine. That's good advice.
Just with it, there's going to be a lot. The offense is going to be good. I don't know specifically if Brock doesn't all the way secure the role, if you want to be going all the way down that path as a fantasy owner.
I think if you have Brock playing on a bye week, you're doing okay. I don't think that's the worst. Like, if he's available on waivers, you have a whole bunch of scoring options. Your whole day could turn around and you never know.
I could see that, especially because some of the bye weeks, there's a lot of teams out.
Yeah. All right, moving on to the AFC West. We're going to do West and West today. I don't know. We'll figure out. We'll do something next week as well. And I know we're going to close with the East last. I'm not ready to talk Patriots yet. This just that whole division. You could argue just about anything for everyone in that one. But AFC West here, I think it's kind of somewhat of a no-brainer. I'd be challenged. I'd really be interested if you're going to challenge it, but I think the Chiefs were going to have it number 1 here. I think they're going to be the best team in this division until someone knocks them out, and
still have Mahomes, right?
Yeah, that's kind of what I wrote down. It was like they have Mahomes, and until anything changes, you got to knock off the champs here. Now, I think it gets a little interesting at 2 here, where we've all kind of anointed the Chargers and are all expected in all this, and I think there's a whole bunch of nice things you can say about all that, but I just watched the Niners over the last couple of years deal with almost all of the same injuries and yet still power through and still have success, and I don't think the Chargers have that. I think Denver has that with their new coach. I'm so out on Russell Wilson, but I still think that they have the ability to do this. Like, I just think if Belichick was signing with this Denver roster right now, you would have them at 2, and I think Sean Payton is similar in that realm where the addition of this coach is huge. This is big time. This is a guy that can outthink other teams and that you have the advantage of on your sideline. So I have them at 2. I could easily see the Chargers totally being better. I imagine you may have that. But the Denver defense was really good last year, and I think if you can just fix this offense, of which there are some names on here, there are some solid wide receivers, some definitely high draft picks that could turn into who knows what of an offense. But I'm in on Denver at 2. Did you have LA at 2 or did you have Denver?
Chargers.
You went with the Chargers at 2.
Chargers at 2.
What have they done to convince you of that? And what does Denver need to do to convince you otherwise?
They got Herbert. He's a legit quarterback. I think that he's going to be really good for a long time. And I'm not picking him for number 1. Chargers are great at just being below. Once they got to win a bunch of games, they're gonna Charger. Everybody knows that. But they can stay right second in this division. Where, all right, you bring in a coach. Is he going to throw the ball around? I don't think he can. I don't think that's allowed. So you still got Russell Wilson out there. That seemed like a real problem last year.
It's a huge problem.
I think there was a watch to see if he would throw more touchdowns than bathrooms he had in his house, and I don't think he hit that. And when those are those sort of things that are getting tracked, that is not good.
Unfixable then. I don't know why we did this for Sean Payton. Is this just a grooming year then? They're going to have to fix Russell Wilson or move on from him. The only thing I wrote down underneath the Chargers at 3 was just prove it. That's all I wrote down. I can't. There's nothing I'm going to tell you haven't already heard that we haven't said the last years, the years before all that. Justin Herbert's great. Keenan Allen, great. All Mike Williams, great. There's so many nice things you could say about him, but yet at the end of the day, when it adds up to wins or not, it doesn't add up to wins. I don't know why. So I'm got it at 3.
What are you talking about? It doesn't add up to wins. They were in the playoffs last year.
They're not a real threat. They're not a real threat. They should be a real threat, and this should be the year.
That's why I picked them. That's why I picked them for second in the division. I'm not picking them to win the Super Bowl.
No, I know. I just think this division, especially me last year, I hyped up this division. I thought there was going to be a ton of points in this. I thought the offense, I thought Russell Wilson was going to be a big dedeal. I thought Carr was going to be slinging it everywhere. I thought there was going to be 38 scores every week within this division, and it was far from that. It was not. And I feel let down by the Chargers. All right, maybe this year that offense will be on fire and a little bit more consistent, and I just wanted to prove it. Just prove it. Just prove it for a year. Be a real threat. I want to throw out this one little fun fact about me picking.
You're talking about a real threat. This is a team with a real quarterback, not one that is on his way out of the league that you're picking as the second one because they got a new fancy coach that hasn't coached, in a few years. How many Super Bowl wins does he have?
By the way, the Chiefs have beat Denver the last 15 times. That has to change this year.
Man.
The last 15 times. They have not beat. Kansas City has whipped them the last 15 times, and I'm saying that changes this year. That starts this year, right now. I'm planting my flag on the Sean Payton thing here. How terrible is it going to be, though, when this was just a massive money grab by him and that they're just awful, and he just mailed it in. He just tanks on Russell Wilson. He's just like, I can't do it with this guy. We'll figure it out till next year. We'll get that high draft pick with whoever it's going to be. I'm going to feel real let down. But I don't think it's going to be that. I think he's going to turn this around almost immediately. I think the defense last year was good. I just think the coaching was so discombobulated and off the – they just weren't communicating. They weren't on the same page at all. And I think that could get fixed easily this year, and it should get fixed. So I got Denver at 2. So consistently here we have Las Vegas at last, and
I have the Broncos last.
You have the Broncos last. Okay.
I have the Broncos last. I think they're going to be absolutely terrible. I don't think I got really nothing to argue for the Raiders. I just think that Russell Wilson is bad and that he's done. So it's not going to be it's just Jimmy G. There might be something still there, and I just think that they're both going to be kind of towards the bottom, but that the Broncos are going to be worse.
Under the Las Vegas Raiders at 4, I still wrote 2 things, and the 2 reasons on why you had them at 3. It's Jimmy wins games, and Josh Jacobs is good. Like that might be enough.
Is Josh Jacobs going to play?
He's good. I just wrote he's good. I don't know if he's going to play, but I think Jimmy wins games, and I think unfortunately Derek Carr did not win them games last year, and I think that was a bit of a letdown. But he's not going to lose games for you, and as long as you don't make any other mistakes elsewhere on the field, Jimmy's going to keep you in these games, and I could easily see him having a better year. I'm just putting a lot of stock into Sean Payton. I wouldn't be shocked if Russell Wilson is done by week 4 and that they're better off with whoever it is by week 5. I'm saying they could still win this or finish second in this with a backup quarterback whose name I don't even know right now.
Will, we played this game last year. It might have been one of the best quotes of the whole year.
What was it?
You don't remember this?
No. Who's the backup for Denver?
See, now I got to look it up real quick.
I just think they could do it without Russell Wilson. Or Russell Wilson can get really good at handing the ball off again. like he did the whole time when they were like, "Oh, let Russ cook," and then Pete Carroll just said no. They're just going to say no this year. He's going to ask to cook, and they're going to say no, and that's going to be better.
Oh no, I was wrong. I'm getting because Russell Wilson. I was messing up with the Seattle Seahawks, where you were really on the Geno Smith, and then it was like the backups behind him because it was like, well, I don't even think it's gonna be Geno. So no, I had those confused because Russell Wilson played for the Seahawks for so long.
Well, I figured I'd take a couple chances with these. Any fantasy advice you have within this division?
No, I've already given a bunch of fantasy advice. Can't just give it all in one go here.
I'm gonna do it every week. I'm gonna pry between each division. You don't have to have anything ready.
I have. It's not even just one player. I have like a whole strategy prepared, but I didn't realize that we were doing it per division. I didn't do it for each one.
We're not. I'm just trying to get you to tell us more. Do you think the best team in the AFC is in this division?
Yeah, I think the Chiefs are the best.
Yeah, me too. So I wanted to start with the West because I thought the Niners were the best in the AFC West. I thought Kansas City was the best in the AFC West, and I haven't really come to such an ultimatum in every other division. I think there's some tight divisions this year. I think this is going to be really hard, and especially picking winners. I think you'll know which teams are competing for the playoffs, but I think it's going to come down to the end of the season for some of these. All right, speaking of fantasy advice, I did ask you to prep for at least one. I know I tried prying for all of this. Do you want to share the one?
Yes. Yes, I could do it now. So I was listening to some podcasts. That's always good. That's always helpful for you. And when you asked me yesterday, I really wanted to just be again that you just have to draft Christian McCaffrey and win a championship like I did last year. But I was not allowed to keep him this year, so I'm gonna have to change my strategy. So one of the things that I wanted to throw out there for people that I think is helpful is in the later rounds. Once you've drafted all of your starters, you've drafted a couple of backups. Now's the time. Take big swings. Think about it in terms of baseball. You got guys now, they're not looking to hit singles or doubles. They are hitting home runs or they're striking out. And the reason that you want to do this for fantasy is because those guys on that far down your bench, they're not even going to sniff the field until maybe the bye weeks. So that's a few. Was that going to be week 4, week 5? It's going to be a little bit in. So much is going to change by the end of September with these picks. So you really want to go with a boom bust. And worst case that happens, this guy doesn't play. He's only middle of the road. Boom, he could be one of the first guys you drop. So the one name that I am throwing out there, I'm seeing on ESPN, Field Yates has him ranked at 119. Michael Thomas. He was hurt for a while. He was back last year for 3 games. I believe he was ranked 16th out of all the wide receivers. So that would have been good enough for a starter on your team for sure. A healthy utility player there, but got hurt again. So there's risk. Any of these players you look at, you could talk yourself out of all the players in this range so easily. But I think that Michael Thomas, if he comes back, I think he still knows how to play football. He's definitely a little bit older. I think that things are going to improve over in New Orleans. And so he's the main guy, but just in general, really just swinging for those fences once you've gotten all of your solid team lined up.
I think Olave, the teammate of Michael Thomas, who had a fantastic rookie year last year, I think he's a real deal. I think he has the next level. I think he can be a Chase. I think he can be a Diggs. I think he could be a name. And I think being paired with Michael Thomas, whether Carr has a veteran comfort with that or just likes the true youth in Olave, I do think that they're going to sling the ball over there. It may not lead to a whole ton of wins, but that division's really up for the taking. And if they want to take this season seriously, I just hope Thomas is healthy. I don't know where his commitment truly has been over the last couple of years, and I'm not really questioning it. It could just purely be injury, but last year was not a successful season for him, and it wasn't entirely based on injury. I think there was just a lack of enthusiasm. I think Kamara coming in suspended already is not the best way for the season to start off for this team, and I hope it works out. But I'm in on Olave, and I think Thomas for sure could still potentially be that guy. But I think Olave could. I think he could be like a top guy this year. Are you in on him?
And I mean, isn't everybody? I mean, he's a
Yeah, but this
top
all right.
10.
Second
Is
second
like
year
kind of
though.
right on the cusp of being like a top 10 wide receiver.
It's his second year. I just eventually you jump into that and somebody gets kicked out, man. He could be the guy jumping in. There could be someone else jumping out. I make room for Olave is all I'm saying. I would have him on your draft boards, and I would be keeping an eye on him because they're gonna have to throw the ball to someone. They're gonna be down in a ton of games, I imagine, and he may be that home run king that saves you a couple games out of nowhere. I feel like I shared enough fantasy advice earlier with my super deep sleeper in Arizona, and I think Josh Jacobs is still really good. Yeah, that's kind of all I got for fantasy advice. Do you have another one? Maybe you could do another one.
No, I think the concern is that just Josh Jacobs isn't going to play.
Oh, Patrick Mahomes. That's another one. You're gonna want Patrick Mahomes. He's really good. If you can get him and maybe pair him with someone else, I don't know who that someone else is going to be. Maybe that's the real draft.
Kelsey,
advice.
his own teammate. You should do that.
Yeah, that'd be really good if you're able to get those two guys. You're doing really well, really well.
Oh, another suggestion I was talking to you about last week when I was doing a draft. Look at guys that have cool touchdown dances, and then if you draft them to your team, when they score, you can do the cool touchdown dance. So, just an idea. Fantasy is supposed to be fun.
I wouldn't ever prioritize the defense, but if you get to a point and you're like, oh, well, what do I need? What's available here? I would keep an eye on Denver. I know they're gonna have to face a lot of these teams in here, but a lot of these teams here may take a lot of chances and sling that ball around, and this team defense may just pick off a whole lot of turnovers. Just throwing that out there. They could totally get burned and torched for 40 points by Kansas City any other week, but that's my little fantasy advice here. Speaking of fantasy advice and gambling, ESPN has recently made a new deal with was it Penn Sportsbook, and that they are going to be doing their own gambling right now. Now this is a huge transition right now because they're going to lose all of their already partnerships with all the other gambling stuff equivalent sponsors, but Penn was with Barstool Sports, and that Barstool has now been repurchased by Dave Portnoy, and Penn is separated with them and joined forces with ESPN. I can't tell if we're catching up to the future or if this is the future. Like this seemed somewhat inevitable. I don't know if we ever saw it playing out this way, but this is where sports should be going, right? This is the direction. This isn't super unusual at all, right?
I think it's showing that ESPN felt the need they needed to diversify in some way, where it wasn't just, hey, we have cable subscriptions. We don't have that. They have the ESPN Plus, so they have the streaming model as well. I don't think they have, they don't think they've had the magazine for a while. They still have to have the website. I don't think the website is necessarily very good. I think they really need to capitalize on the app. That's definitely where I still go to first for scores. But I mean, there's a ton of options for that. I think it's just that's kind of grandfathered in for me. But this is just going to open up a whole other avenue, and you're already going to ESPN to watch the games. So if they do this correctly, they should be able to just be able to squeeze. And I mean that in the best of way. They're the user base that they already have that are watching the games that either are already gambling or saying, hey, this would be interesting. It's much more on Front Street than even it was 5 years ago, where you would never, it had to be like sneaky if it was mentioned on the broadcast about the overhitting. The announcer, oh, well, I think that was an important touchdown for, a bunch of people. Where now it's a little more, they'll just explain it to you. But I think they have to be very careful. I think if they do it well, they can really succeed. If they are not careful, they're going to just overdo it. And people are just going to, they're going to hate gambling. Or it'll be a mute situation. That's just like, this is way too much.
That would be the healthiest thing.
You mentioned in the lines, but now you're talking about props, and that's all you're talking about, and you're not talking about the game at all, and I don't like it, and it's just going to be a mess.
They're not exactly reinventing the wheel or anything here. A lot of this has already existed. It's just now that they're attaching their name to it. I wonder if there will be a comfort level for maybe new users who, for whatever reason, haven't exactly delved in, or maybe it's not legal in your state and it's just recently became legal, that this becomes your kind of go-to opportunity if you were new to this and you hadn't doing it. You're familiar with the ESPN brand. You may not be aware of what FanDuel is or whatever, DraftKings and whatever other equivalents of all that. So I do think they have that kind of advantage of it, but I don't know how many of those people there are. My guess is if you're already super into sports betting, you'll find a way to make it happen, and you already have by now. You weren't waiting for this. So I don't know if there's going to be a bunch of late adopters that are totally on board with this, or because they've been blasting us with these commercials on ESPN for however long right now. Like, so if you didn't understand what DraftKings and FanDuel was by now, I don't know if this suddenly answers the question for you, but we'll see. I think it's
I think right now, and they just at a higher level and just friends in high places have to be aware of what states are coming down the pike that are going to legalize gambling, where it's still only in the teens. I don't think half the country has even legalized it yet. So you're saying, hey, who'd even be interested in this? I think there's still a lot of states that will switch over to make gambling legal, and there is still a market where it's been legal in our states for a little while now. Because I agree with you that for us it's, well, you're gonna have to make it pretty good for me to switch over, because it's like I already have the app. Why am I gonna go to your app? Because it's the same lines, the same discounts. Like what sets you apart?
If people hate anything more than it's switching and downloading the app, like just
right.
Keep me in this one place. I don't want to move to anything else. No, I don't care that it doesn't matter. I'm already signed up here. Leave me alone. Like I think is the more frustrating. But there could also be, ESPN, like you said, has tons of users and tons of accounts already. You just turn it on the account that already exists, and it's like, well, I didn't even need to make anything. I already have a Disney Plus, a Hulu, a ESPN Plus account. I already
here's something
have
I think ESPN could do that other places wouldn't necessarily be able to do. I don't know. Maybe they couldn't do it with ESPN proper, because that's kind of still through cable and it's all convoluted. But ESPN Plus, where they're in charge and they're the subscriber, is saying, hey, if you bet $10 on this ESPN Plus game, you can watch it for free.
Wow. No, man, there's something super unhealthy about the encouragement of all this gambling. I'm happy it exists, and I agree it should exist. Some people can't do it. Like it's not that small of a group of people that have problems with all of this. So there's gonna be a point where I am gonna be a little exhausted of this already. But
when has America ever worried about that?
No, for sure. I'm with you.
There's what is it? Most of Americans, at least the average American, is obese. It's not. We're not making a big effort to make sure we're getting junk food out of the supermarkets and out of everywhere. It's, hey, we're looking to make money. This is America, land of the free. You make your own decision.
Yeah, that's
you
fine.
Want to eat that? Go for it.
No, you're totally right.
You want to gamble? Go for it.
You're totally right. I'm not saying that isn't true. I'm just saying I'm not going to get any of the money from any of that. So I'm just going to wave the flag of like, this probably isn't healthy. Like I'm just all right. Go ahead, do your thing over there. But I'm going to tell you right now, this isn't healthy. All right, I got like 5 minutes left here, and I wrote down the Yankees are bad, and that's not even my writing. That's your quote. You have a podcast. I think you should take a couple minutes here and just let us know how you're feeling.
The Yankees are bad. A month ago, a buddy who is a Red Sox fan, Sean, he's a big listener. He mentioned like, hey, would you be interested in going to Yankees Red Sox? We went like before the pandemic. And it was a bunch of fun, and I think that maybe in the early 2000s, going to Yankee Stadium as a Red Sox fan, I don't know how well that would have went, but now I think it's just kind of mellowed out a little bit, and especially during the regular season. Just you just go, you have a good time. There's a whole mix of fans, so I said, yeah, no, that sounds fun. And at the time, they weren't doing great, but it was kind of everybody in the American East was just kind of in the mix. Well, then right before the Yankees last weekend were up 7-3, bottom of the ninth, blew that lead, and that started a 8-game skid that has continued into today. I went to the game on Friday thinking, oh, well, I'll help out. I'll go there in person. I'll be there. This will work. Oh no, gave up 4 runs to the Red Sox, top of the first inning, just immediately. It's like, all right. Well, this game's over. This is terrible. We have a $280+ million payroll. Not great that a lot of the 3 guys right at the top are all plus 30 and all locked into contracts. So, not the best. With baseball, there's no salary cap. I guess they have the luxury tax, but you play in New York City. So you're like the Knicks. You just print money. People are just going to continue to go. You have the history, but it's just frustrating. I mean, I'm not even like a huge baseball fan, and we're going to be getting close to football, but just you'd like to think if you're spending that much money on a team, you're at least going to make the playoffs and do something. At least last year was fun with Judge setting the Yankee home run record, but this year, just 8 games in a row. It's just embarrassing. And I don't know if they're ever going to win again.
I got frustration for you. Here's the frustration thing. You're lucky you went to the game on Friday, because if you didn't, you needed Apple TV to watch it. Friday night, primetime games only available on Apple TV Plus or whatever it is. I don't know what the name of it is. So you couldn't even watch it. It's Yankees Red Sox Friday night, almost peak summer right now, almost end of August right now. This should be a game that the world should care about and should be able to see on a Friday night. And I was actually at a bar, and they couldn't get it on because guess what? They didn't have Apple TV. And it's not that unusual that for them to not have Apple TV. I just found it very unusual that they had scheduled Yankees Red Sox for all of this, and that it was supposed to be a big draw. I'm glad you got to go to the game because it was the only way you could see it. So that's my frustration.
I did not realize that. That is a good heads up.
So when you tell people why you went to go support them, it's because you couldn't stay at home and watch it, and the bar you went to down the road doesn't have Apple TV to watch it either. So this was the next best option. Yep. I like that. I think you should push to go to games on Friday night is really the true thing that is happening from all this. Don't get Apple TV. Just go to the game on Friday. That's what you should be doing.
It's not that far.
Well, after a week off, it was fun to be back. I just want to remind everyone to subscribe on our YouTube page, follow us on our Instagram. You can follow Zach on his own Twitter and our Twitter, Little of Column A, Little of Column B podcast. We'll be posting polls, as always, like we have in the past. This week, it'll be whether or not you agree with something. I haven't exactly zeroed it down to what it's going to be. It might be just whether or not you think these are the best teams in the division or possibly the league. Well, make sure you go place your vote on Facebook. I'll make sure there's some sort of question posted there. And subscribe. We're on Spotify. We're on everything you can subscribe to. We're on there. So just go subscribe. Podbean, Spotify, Apple, Google, YouTube. Am I missing anything?
All the hits. All the hits.
All the hits. And I did win the last poll, which actually resulted in zero benefit at all. So there's no more drafts. We made it to football, and there's no more rhetorical, unnecessary drafts. Although I think it was a good hit, though.
It's fair for next summer that you get the first pick.
Oh, all right. Well, we'll make that into something going forward. Update on the beer mile. Not going well. I need to be able to breathe to train, and that's trained in every aspect of all this. I just nasal, man. Just my nose. It's almost there. I think I might kick it this week. So I don't think Labor Day is going to happen. I may need a little bit more time, but it's happening soon. I'm just going to sign up and just do it somewhere. I don't know what it's going to be, but any updates you have for the people out there?
I have 2 updates. One update: my company softball team won the championship. So we won the year before COVID, and now we won. So we're on a 4-year dynasty going on right now. I had 0 strikeouts this year, mostly because I didn't play any games this year because I was still coming off of surgery, but still went there and cheered on the team. And hopefully next year I'll be ready to go. And then on Saturday this week, my company Dragon Boat team took silver in our division. So, not quite the gold, but for most of us being our first time on a Dragon Boat, not too shabby. So hopefully going again next year, and hopefully bring back gold for all the fans.
Exhausting. Rowing? No. I don't know if I'd rather do the beer mile, but I know it's certainly challenging. There must be a rowing beer mile sort of equivalent. You got to find out what the rumors are over there. Someone's done something reckless with that, right? Have to.
Has to be.
Yeah. We'll have that update for you, as well as whatever NFL division we do next week. I'm thinking South. Any objection to South?
I like the South.
We'll make the South. So South coming next week. Saving the East for last, so we'll go South, North, East. And we'll keep an update on Team USA. We'll be back.
Little column A, little column B.